Today we are diving deep into a story that exemplifies the complexities of love, trust, and the painful intricacies of human relationships. This is a tale of betrayal and self-discovery that unravels through the life of a remarkable woman, a self-taught graphic designer who became a beacon of success in her field while navigating the tumultuous waters of her marriage. It is a story that will resonate with anyone who has ever felt undervalued or lost in a relationship, and I urge you to stay with me as we explore the emotional highs and lows that define her journey. In the beginning, her life seemed like a perfect blend of creativity and love. At 35, our protagonist had built a thriving career on her terms. She found immense joy in designing graphics and developing websites that not only showcased her artistic flair, but also reflected her practical approach to problem solving. Unlike many of her peers burdened by student debt and the pressure of traditional academic accolades, she showcased the power of talent rooted in passion and determination. However, her husband, just 33, had pursued a more conventional path. With an MBA tucked under his belt, he embarked on a career in wealth management, and for a time they were two ambitious individuals finding their way. The first few years of their marriage unfolded like a dream. They traversed the world together, creating memories and celebrating each other's achievements. Our protagonist learned to compartmentalize her intense work focus, striving to dedicate quality time to her husband and their shared adventures. Their financial standing reflected mutual respect and understanding. There was no significant debt, and they balanced their incomes evenly. Yet beneath the surface of their idyllic life, subtle tensions simmered, particularly centered around the question of validation. While her husband admired her talent, he sometimes felt an unarticulated resentment linked to her lack of a four-year degree. This discrepancy occasionally cast a shadow over their otherwise supportive relationship, creating a rift that neither of them fully recognized. As the pandemic arrived and remote work became the norm, the dynamics of their marriage began to shift. Our protagonist treated her home studio with the same professionalism she would have in a corporate office. She adhered to dedicated working hours, dressed for success even on virtual calls, and made sure to maintain clear boundaries between professional responsibilities and personal time. Her husband, on the other hand, adopted a much more relaxed attitude toward working from home. Frequent breaks interspersed with gaming, casual attire, and the constant blending of personal errands with work led to an unspoken disconnection. What had once been a harmonious partnership transformed slowly into a strained existence, characterized by emotional distance as they occupied the same physical space. As she poured her heart into her creative projects, he began to dismiss her passions, making our protagonist feel increasingly unheard and devalued, and that silence paved the way for more significant communication breakdowns. As our protagonist sought to create an inspiring workspace and a structured schedule, her husband's dismissive responses made her feel as if she were imposing on his laid-back lifestyle. With the reopening of his office space, her husband eagerly embraced the chance to return to a more traditional work environment. He began to stay out late, citing client dinners and networking events. What once felt like an exciting pursuit of professional growth morphed into a veil of secrecy shrouding their relationship and mistrust. It became painfully clear that they were living in a roommate situation devoid of intimacy and mutual understanding. As weeks turned into months, an unsettling coldness crept into their interactions, and our protagonist found herself feeling increasingly invisible in her own home. What followed was a crisis that would shift the course of their lives. This descent into emotional disconnection would soon reveal the harshest truths, testing not only her heart but also her sense of self-worth. The journey was far from over, but it served as a profound reminder of the intricate balance between love and vulnerability, a poignant reflection of what it means to be human. Therein lies the heart of this story, an exploration of love, betrayal, and ultimately resilience. As we continue through this tale, we will witness the unfolding of events that send our protagonist on a path of self-discovery and healing by embracing her inherent value and power in her own right. As we delve deeper into this emotionally charged narrative, we find ourselves exploring the complexities of a relationship that once thrived on mutual respect and shared aspirations, now trapped in an invisible web of silence and emotional disconnect. Part 2 of this story focuses on the impact of remote work and the growing distance between our protagonist and her husband, illustrating the subtle yet devastating shifts that can occur when communication breaks down in a marriage. Our protagonist, a self-taught graphic designer and web developer, prided herself on her ability to cultivate a professional environment in her home studio. To her, the space became a sanctuary, a realm where creativity flourished. Problem solving was at the forefront, and each workday was filled with determination. Her husband, although equally ambitious, adopted a more relaxed approach to his remote work and wealth management. Instead of a structured daily routine, He found solace in frequent breaks filled with gaming, casual attire that often melded with his personal life, and an ever-blurring boundary between work responsibilities and leisurely pursuits. Initially, their differing work philosophies seemed benign. She was dedicated to maintaining professionalism in her workspace, creating a clear boundary that allowed both her personal and professional lives to coexist. Her husband, on the other hand, reveled in the laid-back atmosphere of working from home, where formalities faded and relaxation prevailed. However, as days turned into weeks and weeks into months, this dissonance morphed into an emotional rift that neither of them fully comprehended. It was during this time that the proximity paradox became increasingly evident. Living and working under the same roof without the essential quality of connection that a marriage demands. The husband began to grow dismissive of her projects and passions, often rolling his eyes at her commitment to her work. Conversations that once sparked joy and excitement dwindled into mundane exchanges, spiraling into a silence that felt like an oppressive weight within their home. The protagonist felt increasingly unheard and devalued, as if her accomplishments and love for her work were mere distractions to her husband's more relaxed lifestyle. This growing emotional distance was further accentuated by the secrecy that began to envelop their relationship. On the surface, their life appeared to function normally, yet beneath that veneer of normalcy, nagging doubts began to form. The husband, feeling the strains of an unaddressed dissatisfaction within the marriage, retreated further into himself. The protagonist felt his coldness as he increasingly perceived her need for focus and quiet as a sign of hiding something, a misplaced notion that sickened her soul. As office reopenings began across the country, her husband eagerly embraced the opportunity to step away from their home environment. He began to stay out longer, blaming it on client dinners and networking events. What should have felt like a chance for professional growth became a reminder of their emotional absence from each other's lives. The more he distanced himself through late-night outings, the more isolated she felt. Their once vibrant marriage now resembled a roommate situation, a stark contrast to the supportive partnership they had built during their early years together. Days of accumulated resentment and unspoken truths led to a palpable coldness. Their conversations turned into mere exchanges of daily logistics devoid of intimacy. She found herself grieving what they had once shared, a connection through travel, laughter, and creativity that had brought them together in the first place. Walls of misunderstanding and neglect were forming around their hearts, each unaddressed issue becoming another brick in the fragile structure of their union. It was against this backdrop of distancing and emotional neglect that the protagonist began to feel the burden of inadequacy. The mutual respect that had initially fueled their ambitions felt like a distant memory. What should have been a partnership grounded in support and understanding became a battleground of overlooked aspirations and disillusioned dreams. With each passing day, she felt herself slipping further away, trapped in a cycle of self-doubt and hurt. As we continue this journey, we will witness how the protagonist navigates this tumultuous period in her marriage, striving to reclaim her voice and identity, challenged by the emotional fallout that accompanies the distance growing between herself and her husband. The path forward will be fraught with trials, leading her to a life-altering discovery, one that will redefine her understanding of love, betrayal, and her place in the world. Stay with us as layers of this complex relationship continue to unravel, battling between despair and the flickering hope of self-discovery and resilience. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting warm hues across the sky, our protagonist found herself in a whirlpool of confusion and disbelief. What once was a house bustling with creativity and shared dreams had deteriorated into a shell of quiet tension and brittle exchanges. The emotional distance between the couple had expanded to an almost unbearable degree, hanging silently in the air like a specter waiting to be confronted. It was during one of those mundane afternoons, while organizing her husband's old external hard drive before donating it, a seemingly innocuous task, that everything changed. With a clear focus on functionality and practical details, she aimed to save years of treasured family photos, shared memories that had long been left to gather virtual dust. However, as she shuffled through files, her heart raced with a sense of peculiar urgency, drawing her deeper into the chaos of digital disorganization. As she clicked through folders, she stumbled upon a hidden treasure trove, a folder that bore no title, yet exuded a beckoning, almost sinister allure. Curiosity overcame hesitation, and with one swift click, she opened the folder. What lay before her eyes sent a chill down her spine, destabilizing the grounded reality she had meticulously built. Inside were intimate messages bespoke of affection, photographs that showcased stolen moments, and videos chronicling the undeniable spark between her husband and a much younger junior analyst from his firm. Time seemed suspended as her heart sank, a coldness beginning to seep through her entire being, making it difficult to breathe. The shock was profound, enveloping her in a bubble of disbelief, as if the very air had been siphoned from her reality. Visions of their life together, the trips, the laughter, the creative collaboration, flooded her mind, all of it unexpectedly unraveling in a harsh unraveling of trust. Each intimate message, every shared smile captured in a photograph, bore a weighty taint of betrayal that would change everything. Despite the devastation swirling within her, she knew this was not a time for impulsive reactions. Confrontation, at this moment, would only fuel the chaos. Calmness, she decided, was her strategy. She had stumbled upon evidence that would have shattered anyone's belief in their partner, yet there was a strength burgeoning within her, one that would not allow her to crumble just yet. They had not been intimate in months. Their conversation was sparse, reduced to fragments of shared logistics. They were already existing in a roommate situation, stripped of warmth and affection. Her mind began to race with calculated thoughts. She meticulously copied the incriminating evidence onto a secure cloud drive, eliminating the risk of accidental deletion. A bitter taste lingered in her mouth as she realized this was the necessary groundwork she would need moving forward. This act of preservation was a lifeline, a safeguard against potential future manipulations. She reached out to a reputable family law attorney specializing in at-fault divorces, feeling a grim sense of empowerment as she took control of her situation, reclaiming her agency amid the chaos. Unbeknownst to her husband, in the wake of his betrayal, she had prepared to face the truth on her own terms. The woman who had built a thriving career as a self-taught graphic designer and web developer was now on the verge of reconstructing her life, both personally and professionally. The realization of her husband's transgression ignited a fire within her, a sense of clarity amid the emotional turmoil. While their relationship seemed to hang on a fragile thread, she refused to allow his choices to dictate her worth or future. As she turned the last of the evidence over in her mind, she resolved to gather more proof before exposing the truth. Each moment she witnessed him returning home late, professing his fondness for client dinners and networking events, stirred a calm yet relentless determination inside her. Beneath the layers of hurt, there simmered a rising confidence that she had long ignored, one that now demanded to emerge. And yet her heart wrestled with the conflicting emotions of sadness and a newfound resolve. It was clear that the facade of their marriage had been irrevocably shattered, an illusion that had masked deep-seated issues for far too long. She mourned the love they once shared, but accepted the inevitability of their unraveling. In preparation for the inevitable confrontation, she steeled herself to face not only her husband's betrayal, but the complexities of her own feelings, hurt, anger, and survival. As icy determination coursed through her veins, she could not ignore the shifting landscape of her life. She was no longer simply a partner in a shared dream, she was becoming a woman ready to reclaim her narrative, a pivotal shift that would set the stage for the tumultuous journey that lay ahead. The road to her future felt laden with uncertainty, yet it also shimmered with the promise of newfound liberation. The journey of navigating the painful fallout from betrayal would be grueling, but she was prepared to embrace the trials ahead. As she held the weight of her findings close to her heart, an undeniable truth began to take root. It was time to stand firm against the gravity of betrayal, to confront her reality with unyielding strength and dignity. And thus the stage was set for the next chapter of her life, an unrelenting, powerful return to self-discovery amid the wreckage of her marriage. As the protagonist stood poised to confront her husband, an unsettled heaviness trapped in her chest. In the dim light of their kitchen, shadows loomed over what had once been a space filled with laughter and warmth. Now it merely served as a battleground, the dividing line between their past and an uncertain future, a place where love had curdled into suspicion and heartbreak. Weeks of gathering evidence had crystallized the doubts she could no longer ignore. The weight of his betrayal, kept hidden, like the countless secrets she had unearthed from the depths of that external hard drive, had driven her to this decisive moment. She had meticulously preserved every example of his infidelity, every message and video she had collected that painted a portrait of deception. Yet armed with that knowledge, she felt more like a soldier entering a war zone, unsure of the battle's outcome. The door creaked open, and he entered, the familiar scent of his cologne mixing with the fresh aroma of the cooking dinner, a bittersweet reminder of what once held them together. She watched as he shed his jacket and casually moved to the couch, blissfully unaware of her simmering rage beneath the polished surface. The mundanity of his movements felt ironic, contrasting sharply with the storm brewing inside her. She took a moment to gather her thoughts. This was not simply an accusation, it was a reckoning. "Can we talk?" she finally asked, her voice steady but tinged with the raw emotion she had struggled to contain. He nodded, a lazy smile creeping onto his face. Sure, what sits up? The simplicity of the question felt like a mockery. She took a deep breath, feeling the gravity of the moment land heavily on her shoulders. About us, about everything, she began, choosing her words with fierce deliberation. I found something on your external hard drive. His expression shifted from nonchalance to something more guarded, and she seized the opportunity. I found messages, photos, videos. For 3 months, you have been seeing someone else. Silence filled the spaces between them, thickening like fog. She could almost hear the clock ticking, each second a reminder of the life they had shared, and the one they had lost. Then his defiance seeped through the cracks. What are you talking about? He snapped, the mask of confusion slipping as he registered the truth behind her words. You must be mistaken. No, I am not mistaken. I have evidence, and I am not here to berate you. I want the truth. Her heart raced, her voice unwavering, despite the tremor of hurt underlying her words. It was in that moment that the transformation took shape. His demeanor shifted rapidly, from defensive to aggressive. You are so wrapped up in your work, obsessed with it. You hardly notice me anymore. You never did. Maybe I was looking for something more adventurous. Something you refused to be, he shouted, the raw edges of his voice cutting through the tension like a knife. Is that really your response? To diminish my passions and blame me for your actions? Anger coursed through her, mingling with disbelief. You chose to betray our vows. You chose to throw away everything we built. She had anticipated denial, but not this savage twist of logic. You are just going to shame me for wanting something different, he continued, his eyes narrowing as if settling into a riptide of self-pity. You think you are so much better than everyone because of your creative work. But let me tell you, all of that is just fluff. It is not real. It is not serious work at all. At that moment, the world around her dissolved into fragments, years of laughter, conversations, and shared dreams evaporating, reduced to what he had deemed fluff. In his tone, she heard condemnation that echoed her deepest insecurities. It was a vicious twist, an attempt to make her culpable for his transgressions. Each accusation landed with palpable force, igniting emotions she had meticulously kept contained. She remained calm, steeling herself against the onslaught. This is not about work. This is about trust, love, and respect. It is about the commitment we made to one another. Do not you dare minimize my worth in this conversation. You were the one who broke our bond. His retort was bitter, laced with spite. You would not ever leave. You will lose half of everything if you do, and you know it. You need the safety I provide. He leaned closer, his smugness grotesquely unmasked. Oh, and by the way, a man can have his cake and eat it too. That is just how it is. The audacity of his words struck her like a slap. The greater tragedy was the way he wielded his words as weapons, taunting her with half-truths and unfounded bravado. Any semblance of the man she had married was buried beneath layers of arrogance. This was not just a confrontation. It was a revelation of his true character. The truth was not buried in the files on that hard drive. It was hidden in the depths of this moment, where the enormity of betrayal became clarified by his own vile words. In silence, she stared him down, realizing this conversation was no longer about love or the remnants of their marriage. This was a show of strength, a moment of reclaiming her narrative. And in that metamorphosis, amid the chaos, miscommunication, and pain, she found that this confrontation would ultimately neither define her nor shackle her to the remnants of a faltering relationship. With unwavering resolve, she pushed aside the tremors of revulsion and uncertainty. This ends now. No matter what you think, I will not allow your actions to dictate my worth. I deserve better than this, better than us. This clarity marked the beginning of her assertion, the embodiment of resilience wrapped in grief, anger, and a fierce desire for personal growth. She was ready to battle not just for her future but for her very identity, prepared to detach itself from the shadow of the man her husband had become. Thus the stage was set for the next battle in this tumultuous journey, a battle for her freedom amid the emerging wreckage of love lost. The days following the confrontation with her husband felt both liberating and suffocating for the protagonist. While the weight of his betrayal had been lifted, the shadows of doubt and uncertainty loomed larger than ever. The vile words he had hurled during their fight echoed in her mind, twisting like a knife deep in her heart. She felt a mixture of anger and resolve brewing within her, a volcanic pressure threatening to erupt. As she sat in her home studio, the very space where she had poured her passion into her work, inspiration struck. The thought of revenge ignited a flame within her, a spark fueled by the cruel assumptions he had made about her worth, as if her creative career was nothing more than a side hustle. She envisioned something extravagant and public, something that would not only serve to remind him of his betrayal, but also assert her strength. Yes, this was not merely about inflicting pain but about reclaiming her narrative. She needed him to understand in no uncertain terms that his actions had consequences. Before her ideas coalesced into a plan, the voice of her lawyer flashed through her mind. Be careful. Revenge can often be a double-edged sword. The warning loomed large, but it did little to temper her burgeoning determination. After all, her heart surged with indignation, and the sweet taste of poetic justice felt tantalizingly within her grasp. Instead of abandoning her hopes for a graceful exit, she collaborated with her designer friends to create a symbol of her rising phoenix, a custom-designed engraved acrylic award plaque. Subtle enough to avoid immediate judgment, it fluttered with irony. The inscription would read, "For outstanding achievement in strategic diversification of marital assets, here's your plaque, enjoy your new portfolio." The words danced in her mind, playful yet poignant. She wanted this to serve as a reminder of the audacity that had shattered the foundation of their marriage. The day of reckoning arrived, and with it came a palpable excitement tinged with nervous energy. She strategically prepared herself for the event, knowing full well that her husband would attend a team appreciation luncheon at his firm. The timing could not be more perfect. She arranged for a process server to deliver the plaque, packaged alongside the divorce papers, right in front of his colleagues. The humiliation, she thought, was just the cherry on top. Her heart raced as she received a message from the server. They are in place. All systems go. From her home office chair, the anticipation caused her pulse to pound. She imagined the moment, picturing the expressions of surprise and confusion on her husband's face as he opened the delivery. Would he scowl in anger or recoil in shame? As the exhilarating script of revenge unfolded in her mind, a ball of anxiety settled momentarily in her stomach, overlapping with exhilaration. When the server arrived at the firm, the atmosphere was casual. Laughter and camaraderie filled the air. The server donned a uniform, delivering the package discreetly but with deliberate authority. As he announced, "Special delivery for husband's full name," she leaned closer to her screen, bracing herself almost instinctively for the eruption that would soon follow. The air went still. A hush blanketed the frenzy of casual chit-chat. Now, in this very moment, the table was about to turn. What ensued was explosive. She watched in awe as her husband opened the package, the words on the plaque cutting through the air like a knife. First, confusion flashed across his face, followed quickly by disbelief and fury. Then the lingering shock morphed into an unavoidable realization. The cacophony around him was obliterated by the piercing silence as he processed not just the public nature of the delivery, but the irrevocability of his actions. A guttural yell escaped his lips, reverberating through the office, and within moments, whispers chased his outburst like wildfire. Friends and colleagues stood witness to the unraveling of his constructed image, the prestige he had so delicately curated now collapsing under the weight of his own infidelity. In that grotesque moment of embarrassment, he truly believed he was free to play both sides but was now painfully reminded of the consequences that come with betrayal. The absurdity of his defensive maneuvers was now laid bare before everyone who had stood by and watched the decline of their once respected partner. As she reflected on the entire ordeal, an intense surge of emotion coursed through her. In those first seconds of elation, she felt victorious, a sense of justice served upon her husband. Yet moments later, a familiar doubt crept in. Had she crossed the line? Would this act of humiliation come back to haunt her? Did victory carry a cost she had not fully considered? The high of that euphoric rush began to fade, leaving an unsettling taste in her mouth. But one thing was certain. The power she had reclaimed felt tangible, invigorating her spirit. Behind the scenes, she began to receive texts and calls from friends, applauding her bravery for taking a stand against betrayal. They celebrated the audacity with which she had executed her revenge. The roaring sound of support served as a reminder that while pain may come from the ashes of her marriage, she could still rise, rebuild, and forge a new path. She knew her journey towards healing was far from over. She had to confront the emotions left in the aftermath of her actions. Feelings of anger, betrayal, and disappointment intermingled with her burgeoning strength. Step by step, she would navigate the labyrinth of her emotions, emerging on the other side renewed. The battle ahead was one for her healing, her identity restored, not merely a soldier in a war but a phoenix rising from the ashes of her past. With determination and honesty, the protagonist vowed never again to allow anyone to define her value, her worth forged through talent and resilience, not the constructs of traditional success defined by degrees, nor the deceit of someone she once called her partner. Her story had taken a dramatic twist, but she would write the next chapter herself, with her own indelible ink. If you found this story compelling and want to hear more about overcoming challenges and rediscovering your sense of self, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated. Your support validates each step of this journey and keeps the conversation alive about resilience, healing, and personal growth. And remember, you are never alone in your struggles. Join the community in the comments section below. Share your thoughts, experiences, or any advice you have on how to reclaim your power in difficult situations. Let's build a space of empowerment together. Thank you for watching, and I cannot wait to see you in the next video. Leave a like if you enjoyed the content, and until next time, keep shining bright.